Ranking Member Phillips, Chairman McCall, colleagues. When I was a junior officer in Peshawar, Pakistan 31 years ago, I got to see a Pakistani election up close. I got to see the irregularities in that election, but also the courage of the Pakistani people to come out and vote despite threats of intimidation and threats of violence. If you'll allow me today, I propose to say a few words about where the election on February 8 fell short, where we saw positive elements, and what lies ahead for U.S. policy in Pakistan. The day after the elections, the State Department issued a clear statement. We noted undue restrictions on the freedoms of expression, association, and peaceful assembly. We condemned the electoral violence and restrictions on human rights and fundamental freedoms. We condemned attacks on media workers and restrictions on the access to the internet and telecom services, and we expressed concern about allegations of interference in the electoral process and stated that claims of interference and fraud should be fully investigated. If you'll allow me, I'll drill down a bit deeper into these observations. We were particularly concerned about electoral abuses and violence that happened in the weeks leading up to the polls. First, there were attacks against police, politicians, and political gatherings by terrorist groups. Second, many journalists, particularly female journalists, were harassed and abused by party supporters. And third, several political leaders were disadvantaged by the inability to register specific candidates and political parties. On the day of elections, an internationally respected local election monitoring organization said they were barred from observing vote tabulation in more than half of the constituencies across the country. And despite a high court order not to interrupt internet service on election day, authorities shut down mobile data services, the principal means by which Pakistanis access social media and messaging apps. There were positive elements to this election as well. Despite the threat of violence, over 60 million Pakistanis voted, including over 21 million women. Voters elected 50% more women to parliament than they had in 2018. In addition to a record number of female candidates, there were also a record number of members of religious and minority groups and young people running for seats in their parliament. Pakistani voters had a choice. A range of political parties won seats in the national and provincial assemblies. 3 different political parties now lead Pakistan's 4 provinces. More than 5,000 independent election observers were in the field. Their organization's conclusion was that the conduct of the election was largely competitive and orderly, while noting some irregularities in the compilation of results. Pakistan is an important partner of the U.S. We share a commitment to strengthening Pakistan's democratic institutions, supporting the U.S.-Pakistan Green Alliance framework, cooperating to counter terrorist threats from groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and bolstering respect for human rights, including the right of religious freedom. Most importantly, the United States plays a critical role in promoting economic stability in Pakistan. We are the top destination for Pakistan's exports. We have been one of the most important investors in critical infrastructure over 76 years of our partnership. For example, the U.S. government is refurbishing now the Mangala and Tarbela dams, which provide electricity to tens of millions of Pakistanis. Our support for Pakistan over these decades has been in the form of development grants, private sector investment, and humanitarian assistance during the periods of its greatest need, including the recent catastrophic flooding. Unfortunately, Pakistan is facing a mounting debt challenge after the past decade of elevated borrowing, including from the PRC. This year, nearly 70% of the federal government's revenue is expected to go to payments to service this massive debt. Pakistan needs economic reforms, and it needs private sector-led investment that will deliver economic growth for the Pakistani people and not dig their government deeper into debt. Finally, Pakistani people deserve a country that is peaceful, that is democratic, and that is prosperous. We are working every day to support that vision. I thank the subcommittee for its leadership on developing our relations with Pakistan, and I pledge to work with its members as we execute our policy. Chairman, I want to be very clear on this point. These allegations, this conspiracy theory is a lie. It is a complete falsehood. I have reviewed the press reporting related to this, what's called the cipher in Pakistan, the alleged leak diplomatic cable from the embassy here. It is not accurate. It at no point does it accuse the United States government or me personally of taking steps against Imran Khan. And thirdly, the other person in the meeting, the then ambassador of Pakistan to the United States, has testified to his own government that there was no conspiracy. We respect the sovereignty of Pakistan. We respect the principle that Pakistani people should be the only ones choosing their own leaders through a democratic process. Mr. Chairman, we are grateful that you are holding this hearing today for us to talk about that process.
Thank you. And hey, your response is so good because it's so clear that you're correct, and we appreciate so much your clarity on the issue, and good people indeed.